On our top stories, Dubai to resume Friday prayers as of 4th December 2020. Moving on to Oman, they start issuance of visit visas. And in Sri Lanka, 8 dead and 50 wounded in Covid-19 riots in the prison. And Italy has sued Apple for £10 million over water resistance claims. And the Microsoft technology giants come up with an employee monitor for body language and facial expressions. Thank you for tuning in to the Q-TV By Lizzy Njoga. I'm your presenter and welcome to another edition. Welcome. Dubai resumes Friday prayer meetings starting 4th December on over 760 mosques. On November 24th, Dr. Saif Al-Dahri, that is the spokesperson for the National Emergency Crisis and Disaster Management Authority, announced that mosques across United Arab Emirates will reopen for worshippers 30 minutes before the Friday prayer and will close 30 minutes later. The announcement was made during the media briefing held by the UAE government to outline the latest developments regarding the coronavirus pandemic. Among the safety guidelines for worshippers, they were supposed to wear face masks at all times during the Friday prayer, maintain a 2-meter distance, and carry their own prayer mats. Toilets and places of ablution for women will remain closed in the meantime. Authorities have also urged the elderly, children, and those suffering from chronic diseases, as well as people with weak immunity, to pray from home. Mosques located in the industrial areas will remain closed until further notice. Dr. Hamid also said that the Friday sermon will be combined and should not exceed 10 minutes, as underlined by the UAE authorities last week. The ICAD also emphasized the needs to follow the safety instructions for prayers, which will include distribution of food and water within the mosques. Now, moving on to Oman, which has started issuing tourist visas. The tourist visas will only be issued to those whose visits are organized by hotel or tourism companies. Oman will resume issuing tourist visas to select categories of individuals. The country's Supreme Committee dealing with the Covid-19 pandemic ruled on Monday the 19th, that is on 30th. The Supreme Committee decided to allow the issuance of the tourist visas to enter the Sultanate, provided the arrival of the tourist is within the framework of tourist groups organized by hotel and tourism companies, said a statement issued by the Oman News Agency. Over 75% of the visitors to Oman show Covid-19 symptoms within 7 days. The country had initially suspended the issuance of tourist visas as in March 2020 as the Covid-19 pandemic began to accelerate globally. In June, it decided to extend the validity of tourist visas until March 2021. All tourist visas issued from March the 1st until August the 31st were eligible for the extension. Oman, which opened its airports for regular commercial and international passenger operations on October 1st, was after nearly 6 months since the airport closure on March the 29th, 2020. Now, moving on to Sri Lanka, coronavirus prison riots has led about 8 dead and 50 wounded. In Colombo, Sri Lanka, at least 8 prisoners were killed and more than 50 injured in clashes with guards at the Sri Lankan prisons, officials have said on Monday. Authorities tried to quell the protest over the rising coronavirus infections in the country's crowded jails. Sri Lanka has witnessed an upsurge in coronavirus cases in the past month. Over the congested prisons across the country have reported thousands of fresh infections. Inmates have staged protests in the recent weeks demanding an increase in coronavirus testing and new isolation facilities for infected prisoners. The latest clash at the Mahara prison, situated on the outskirts of the capital Colombo, started on Sunday when some inmates protested against the prisoners infected by the COVID-19 being transferred to the Mahara facility. Now, moving on to Italy. Italy has fined Apple an amount of £10 million for misleading claims about the iPhone's water resistance capability. The National Competition Authority (AGCM) found Apple's claims did not hold up under the real-world conditions. Instead, the water resistance claims were valid only with pure water in laboratory conditions. AGCM also said Apple is not covering water damage under warranty, despite the claims of water resistance was an aggressive practice. The claim was made for a range of phones across the several years, from the iPhone 8 to the iPhone 11 and the various variations. This came after Apple settled for a slowdown of $500 million after France has also hit the record of fines for £1.1 billion for the same company. And now to our parting shot. The technology giant Microsoft has filed a patent for a system to monitor employees' body language and facial expressions during work meetings to further issue something called the quality scores. A filing suggests it could be deployed in real-world meetings or online virtual get-togethers. Its environs room being packed with sensors to monitor the participants, which could raise privacy concerns. Microsoft is already under the fire of a separate productivity score tool, which is also called the Employee Surveillance Tool. That feature was introduced last year but came to prominence only after the public demo at a corporate event. It allows managers to keep track of individual workers' use of Microsoft Office 365 software, including the Outlook email and the team meetings and Excel spreadsheet apps. Microsoft points out the facility is not enabled by default and suggests its primary goal is to identify IT shortcomings and not an employee surveillance tool. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Q-TV by Lizzy Njoga. I have been your presenter and my name is Elizabeth Njoga.